Hi, it's Philippa here. I'm gonna do a collective reading. I feel a little bit sick today, not properly. I'm gonna fight it off. I think I'm gonna fight it off. But I've just got that slight sort of, if you can see a funny kind of look in my eye, that's what it is. Oh, how we feel internally. The Ace of Coins, that's lovely. And what's that making us act like in the external? The Nine of Coins. This is amazing. The basis of the situation. The basis of this reading. The Four of Swords. And something that's happened in the recent past. The Seven of Wands. A potential outcome. The Nine of Swords. Something for the near future. The Eight of Cups. What the attitude of the collective is at the moment. The Strength card. They're behaving so obediently, the cards. And your environment. Too many. So we got two. Oi! Environment. I have to be a bit careful here because I've got big holes in my floorboards. And I'm always a bit worried. Someone's credit card fell down there recently, unbelievably. So your environment is the Ten of Wands and the Nine of Wands. So we've got 3 nines on the table, 2 eights. That's interesting. And hopes and fears. The hopes and fears of the collective, please. 1, 2. Gosh, the Three of Swords, but it's in the reverse, and the Tower, also in the reverse. I don't usually go much into the reversals, but that sort of interests me because they're such punchy cards. And an outcome. An outcome, please, for the collective. An outcome. An outcome. One on the floor, which is the Ace of Cups, and we started with you as the Ace, and also the Five of Swords. I'm just going to dive in. I've made the observation that we've got 3 nines, 2 eights. We've only got 2 majors. There's a sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 thing going on because we've got the 10 of Pentacles. Yeah. In terms of suits, we've got quite an even mix, actually. So I'm going to take as the meaning behind the reading this Four of Swords, which shows somebody recuperating, resting. And I think that's probably what this period is about for you. So let's have a look. I've also brought with me a different deck today to this table. So, because I will still do, I can't find the books for the 2 other decks that I usually use. I did a big tidy up recently. They'll come to light, but I just wanted to get a little bit of light before the end of the day. It's rapidly going, so I don't know why I bothered with that. But anyway, maybe it's an opportunity to introduce something new. So, the internal world of the collective, the Ace of Pentacles. So, there is a feeling of a new start, a new health, potentially trying to heal from something. But the hand of God giving you the opportunity of this new physical start. So it could be pregnancy, health, healing, a new physical, tangible idea. Something new is being created. And the way that's making you act in the outside world is with the Nine of Pentacles, which shows somebody who is an incredibly artistically able person, or somebody who's really mastered her trade, art, whatever it is. We see her in this beautiful garden. It's interesting. This is a new pack. I'm wondering whether the card colours are slightly different from what I've been using. No, I think they're the same. It's a very yellow. It's standing out as incredibly yellow. And the reason that I started doing this reading was that about 20 minutes ago, the whole sky, I look over a sunset here, and the whole sky was this incredibly yellow, noticeably strangely yellow glow that's not dissimilar to this. Now, the Nine of Pentacles is somebody who is alone in her garden, having tamed this wild bird that sits on her hand and looking at the fruits of her successes. But when I look at what else stands out to me today, I was thinking of the little manor house in the background. But yeah, it's just this incredible yellow, this you know, you say red sky at night, sailor's delight. It feels like the eve of something very, very good. The sense of this recovery that we're seeing that you're aiming at with the Four of Swords. And she's solitary in this beautiful garden, but it is a card of culmination and incredible so my mind is doing something really interesting now, which is it's trying to rifle through. I spent a few days recently going through some of my tarot books, and I was sort of doing an experiment where I read things about each card that had appeared in one of these readings, just to see if it deepened my understanding, because I've got all these different books. And I was doing something which I don't think is that helpful, actually, which is to go, what did the book say? What did the book say? Really, the way that is more helpful to read this is to go with what I see, what jumps out. And then if something that the book said comes up, that will be meant to be, but not to use the front part of the mind. And I think that's quite interesting. I was just speaking to a friend of mine about The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which talks about how, like many of these books, the mind should be in service, not in charge. And so sometimes when we try to lead with the mind, we get lost because we follow, we don't follow the heart. So I read all sorts of things about this card, and they are not with me now. And I wrote them all down. And they were things I knew anyway, but they were sort of different slants on it, and each book had a different slant. And it was an experiment, and I just don't think it's particularly useful. So what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is if you're in a healing journey, try not to force anything, and try not to sort of use your brain in that kind of very analytical way. Try to use the snail's pace that we see with that little snail at the end, and the instinct of the bird that she's tamed, the falcon that she's tamed. Try and use those kind of instincts. The two trees that stand, a bit like the pillars that we see standing in so many of the cards. Here we've got trees. It's as if she's not listening to the brain, as I'm saying, but listening to nature. That's how it's coming out at the moment. So it might be a new start where you're actually listening to nature's rhythms rather than your own staccato, educated, overlaid thought patterns that might not always be that helpful. As I said, in the basis, we've got this resting, retiring figure. I did hear something really interesting. I was listening to, I don't know if anyone else relates to Judy Blume, who is this amazing writer who writes children's fiction. And I grew up in the era when we all used to read her books avidly. And they kind of spanned from kind of 9, 10-year-olds or 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds all the way through to, she does adult fiction, teen fiction, everything in between. And I was re-listening on Masterclass which I have a subscription to one of her lectures, because I love her. Lots of people love her. I mean, she's beloved if you've read her books. There's something so sort of generous spirited about her. And in the first lesson, something really strange popped out. And it was that when she was a little girl, she was terrified of rain and thunder. And I know someone who's really frightened of rain and thunder. So that's really interesting to me. And she says she still is. There's a woman in her late 70s, early 80s maybe now. And she was also terrified of a stained glass window that they used to pass in the car. And her mother was very sweet with her and used to say, "It's coming up behind your face," and she would duck down. And I thought, gosh, that's so interesting. Because now this is something I read when I was, one of the cards I was researching was the Five of Pentacles, which shows two people in great need outside a church with a stained glass window. And a lot of the way that it's taught is they need to find their way into the church to get solace. But some of the books that I was reading had this nuance of, is there a sense that the church doesn't really provide solace? Is it actually a false set of principles that doesn't actually help those most in need? That was sort of one slant. And it was very interesting to me that there was Judy Blume talking about this kind of dreadful glowering, did she think it was an eye or a face or something unkind in a church, which I just think is super interesting because it feels like she was that very vulnerable figure going past it, and actually it was like a kind of wolf in sheep's clothing, that sense that the teachings that we might be surrounded with might actually not help us somehow. I thought that was really interesting. Now here again we have another stained glass window. In this case, he's in the church and he's healing, and it shows a picture of Jesus healing or kind of preaching to some people. Although, yes, there probably is Jesus, but I can't help but see Mary. And then that puts me in mind of a church that I love very much, where I go quite often when it's empty, and in it there is a window which has a dog in it. It's like, and lots of Marys, lots of female figures, which I always like to see because so often these images are male. And it's as if this reading is slightly saying, look for the, well, what's coming to me is try not to think of the sort of dogma of church, think of the dog in the church, or think of the kindness, the feminine principle, the idea of these chakras being aligned. It's much more sort of body-centered, body, mind, and spirit. So you've got the third eye, the heart, the solar plexus, the spine being aligned, a sense of divinity within the body, and not being removed from that, not being too up in your head. In the recent past, we see you on higher ground, fighting these 6 rods with your 7th rod, with your 7th wand. You have got onto higher ground, but look at his shoes. They're odd shoes. So he has rushed somewhere up onto higher ground, as if escaping a flood or a big event or an assault, not even having enough time to get himself properly attired. But he's got these passionate red socks and, tights and shoes. And he is winning. But recently I feel like things might have been quite a lot, which is why we're needing for you to rest. So I'm not getting any particular hits as to who this might be and what it might be that has been so much for you, other than he's one of these characters that feels quite giant on the landscape. And the way he's appearing to me today is as if he's kayaking almost. So there might be some element of weather, of water, of emotions, of almost thrill-seeking, of being in this kind of, okay, off we go, life, here we go, I can keep up. He is winning, but it's nonetheless not a pose of rest, which is what we see you really needing. And one outcome is the second 9 here, that we've got the 9 of Swords. So the reason I like this particular Rachel Pollack version of the Celtic Cross is that she gives us the idea of one outcome being based on what we have in the cross part. So the basis of the situation, our inner and outer world, and things that have happened around us, and how that might play out. And then along the vertical that goes up this way, we have our attitude, our environment, and our hopes and fears. So our agency, effectively, and the environment we've created around us or allowed to create around us, and how that affects things. So here, without any of those, our own attitudes, this could be worrying. This assault. It might be even that you can't sleep. You know, obviously this is a sleepless person. Is this someone who can't sleep, and that's what's causing you anxiety? These kind of interlocking swords that feel so enmeshed. This bedspread, which I find really interesting, because look at all those different zodiac signs and stars and suns, the symbols for all these different things, as if the kind of fates and the activity around you that you can't really have too much agency on. If you leave it just to what's happening before you interact with it, it could be quite punchy. There's quite a lot coming at you. And it's difficult to rest in those circumstances. However, we see you walking away from something in the near future, and I think it's walking away from a version of something that you've done in the past, because you're not upending these lovely cups. You're leaving them standing. And what's standing out to me here is the 5 at the bottom, the 5 standing cups at the bottom with the 3 on top. They look like a building. They look like, I've just been watching Graham Hancock's program about the ancient apocalypse. The season 2 has just dropped, and I love stone structures. Oh my god, they're so amazing. And the episode I'm watching at the moment is talking about this incredible, very ancient technique that you see in some of the Americas, in the Easter Islands, and in Egypt, obviously, of those kind of super precise rocks. But they're very interesting because they're cut in such unusual ways and then slotted together so amazingly. Something about the way that these stand is making me think of those. It's the yellow colour. I'm looking at the little knobbles on them, which are all turning like Morse code. I wonder what those would represent. 1, 2, 2, 3, and 2. At the bottom, and the way that he slots perfectly into those top 3 there as he walks off with his red boots, this time boots that match, with the white hand and the white pole representing some sort of potential future that is yet not quite written. Again, into a rocky landscape, but he's sort of got himself together. He's got the right shoes on now. So if you look at that in your recent past where it's all a bit frantic, there's a sense of having taken stock and being able to cope, and understanding that the way things have been cannot be the way that they continue to be, that you have to move forward in some respect. So there's an 8, followed directly by another 8. So we've got this 8s and 9s repeating, but this is our first of our major arcana, and it is actually the year of the strength this year. And people sometimes say that means you need to use strength. 8, she's the female alchemist, and again, she feels like a giant in her landscape, which is sort of like he feels to me. Here he feels like a giant assailed on the landscape. He's too tall for those cliffs. He's out of whack with it. Whereas here, again, these tiny little hills and this beautiful, abundant landscape, and her so lovingly looking at this lion and dealing with his mouth and what's going on in there. And he looks really sweet and kind of biddable and a bit griffin-like to me today. Something very mythical about him, his wonderful mane and her calm, patient look. It feels as if this is the thing that's allowed you to go from the Seven of Swords, Seven of Wands, feeling a little bit beleaguered and potentially getting into a situation where you start worrying, to this lovely Eight of Cups, where you walk away from how things are. And here again, you wrestle with the way things are, but gently, without decimating, without erasing what has been, but more like kind of working with clay, sort of moving something into a position that you need it to be. So what is that? What are you enabling? Is it your attitude? Is it the worries that come out at night? Are you able now to tame that kind of ego mind, the mind that likes to play tricks on us? Are you able to say, no, I'm not doing that anymore? Just slowly, again, back to this Michael Singer that I was speaking to a friend about. He describes what lots of people describe, but for me it really went in. And when I was reading this, I remember reading it on a beach somewhere. It was so lovely, and thinking, God, yeah, that just is totally sinking in, like words sometimes do. And the idea that when you're worrying about something or you're having a very neurotic thought, you can say, okay, I can come back to this thought. And then your brain thinks, no, I've got to get to the end of the thought. I've really got to grapple with it. And you're like, no, I can come back to it. I'll put a pin in it. I'll have another time that I'll think about it, maybe tomorrow. And of course, inevitably, life moves on and your thoughts move on. And you don't necessarily go back to those circular thoughts, which trains your being to understand that your brain isn't always in service of you, that it can be a bit neurotic and overthink things and think it's trying to protect you, because of course that's what it thinks it's doing, but actually cause problems. So this is interesting. This is a stage card, but these are two stage cards. This one is upside down, and I don't know if anyone else describes it as a stage card, but wherever I see these two lines, I always think of it as a stage card. And this is the stage card in its more traditional form. There are a few of them in the minor arcana, where you see that double stage just before the wands start coming out of the ground in front of the mountains. And I'm not quite sure what that represents, other than to say, this is your environment. So it might be you observing yourself as if you're on a stage, or it is just a stage. There is a transient feel, like a scene change, a scene change might be coming up, because but this is an interesting environment. It's one of generations of defensiveness, is what I want to say, because you've got this card of generational wealth. But I'm thinking a lot about the ancestors when I look at this. And here is somebody who has generations of pain that have potentially been brought from this ancestral place, that can also, and is also, full of all your greatest qualities and assets, because your ancestors have got you here. And so there's a great life force that's come through those stories. But there is also inherited trauma and defensiveness and pain. And the trouble with this guy is that he's so busy building fences and so wary and on the lookout that it's hard for him to accept the new stage that needs to happen. And again, it's a 9. So we've had the 9 of Pentacles, the reality of your resplendent self, the 9 of Swords, worrying, and now the 9 of Wands, defensive, but with the 10. So I feel like it's generational defensiveness. That's what's coming through to me at the moment. And then your hopes and fears, these two cards in reverse, I think there are like nightmares that you've been considering or going through. And about short, sharp shocks, things not being built on firm foundations, about absence, delay, and separation, which we see in the Three of Swords. Pains that no one wants to face. And potentially those are things, again, that are inherited, because, you know, it's amazing how differently people deal with the cards that they've been dealt with. You know, one person can get a bad diagnosis of health and sail through, be super positive, not even consider that the treatment's not going to work, whereas another catastrophizes the smallest thing. And that's no sense of blame or judgment. It's to do with how well we were able to soothe when we were children, how well we're able to self-soothe now, the way our thoughts tend to play up or work in coherence with us. And so I think you're really hoping for the opposite, the end of these challenging situations, that this needs to come to an end now. You've been through something quite big potentially, and you need to see the back end of it. That's what you're really hoping and praying for. And you fear that there's still a little bit of this lingering around. And that's what comes out in our actual outcome, which is so much more positive than the Nine of Swords, where we see us stuck in our neurotic thinking. Now we have a 5, a stage card again, because you can see that double line that suggests a battle that it's an interesting one. It's a battle that no one really enjoys, the victor or the losers. A kind of necessary battle, something you had to go through, a hurdle. There's no pleasure in it. The weather is bad. It is just a stage, as I've been talking about these stage cards, but also that comes with it something new that you love from the hand of God with all those yods of blessing. So in order to get to your heart, and potentially that's what we're talking about, is letting the heart win rather than the brain, because the swords are always the suit of the mind and our more neurotic thoughts or our good thoughts. Here we have the idea, if we're thinking about it as thought forms, of kind of battles we wish we didn't expend energy on, really. Like, wouldn't it have been great if we didn't really get engaged with this? A bit like what's coming to my mind is when you go somewhere or see someone that you knew was going to be a bit draining and you think, God, I wish I hadn't done that, because as quickly as you might be in a good mood, that they kind of slot into your consciousness or pull out of you or resonate with you in a way that makes you feel suddenly dreary or negative about your own life, or worrying, or leeches your energy. And I suppose what we're trying to do is not do this anymore. We're trying to heal the brain and allow the heart to take precedence, which we see here. So I'm going to pull a couple of other cards. Oh, I should have had the books for these. Not meant to, clearly. So let's see. There we go. First one out. So we've got, this is from the Enchanted Forest, Keeper of Visions. I wanted to say it was an ace because it's so simple and straightforward and lovely. And what it's reminding me of, what it's speaking to me without the book, so let's just go with that, is I was watching Bad Monkey last night on Apple. And in Bad Monkey, there's a lovely paternal figure of the main character who kind of relates to nature in this very beautiful, mystical way. And it's, what was that? And he talks about going swimming in his beautiful lagoon in Florida with a manatee, and the manatee talking to him and giving him wisdom. And all his wisdom is very simple, but very sort of healing and lovely. And it just reminds me of that manatee. There are two instances where you see the manatee, which obviously doesn't look like that, but it's vast and its big eyes looking at you. And there's So I feel like this is the wisdom of nature, the way we were speaking about that with the falcon here, coming and taking over a little bit. It's interesting because she grapples in the the strength card with the natural world, but it's the kind of reactive, predatory side of nature, whereas the manatee is such a sort of peaceful being, and that's how this fish is turning up to me. And it's like getting in line with those, you know, anything in the water means subconscious, means your emotions, getting in line with the softer, quieter, slower, incredibly wise part of yourself. And I think that's what this reading is about. So that's our one card from that deck. And then I'm going to, this is going to be really challenging because I'm going to pull a card from Rachel Pollock's Tribe deck. Can't I remember? As I say, I'm not feeling very well. I haven't slept brilliantly. But anyway, actually I did sleep well. I just went to bed far too early. So, no, there's too many cards here. But the one that was showing was this one with the two different sides of the fish, which to me immediately says, because it's so similar to that, I'll put it back in now. It's like the different sides to your thinking and feeling and knowing which one we want to concentrate on. Let's see what else this deck wants. It's such a great deck, but it is based on the tarot, but you just do need, I haven't learnt it yet because it was re-released this year. Okay, so 3 have popped out. I'm going to take firstly the one that's up, which is the Place of Rivers. So I remember bits about this. This is like a ley line. This is where the rivers converge. Who was telling me about a place where the rivers converge? Oh, a friend of mine is staying somewhere right in between the rivers, and I was wondering whether that was quite a special place. We have the 2 trees, again, interestingly, like we have the 2 trees in this card in the background, those 2 that stand up. It is a peaceful environment of nature. We have our stone dolmen at the back and a cave. I mean, it feels to me like a retreat into nature, into the natural rhythms of the world, which I feel that card is about, actually. And this is what this reading is about. And then the other 2 cards that come are the Lovers and the Speaker of Rivers. And again, with this giant fish. And what feels a bit like the Ace of Cups. It's saying, follow that beautiful multicolored fish. This one's in charge. This one is worth listening to. Get in line like those other little fish in the river. This is my reading without the book. And the Lovers, which is about a divine choice being given to you, or a divine offer. And take it, again, the 2 trees. Take, if your brain is offering up neurotic thoughts or thoughts that harmonize, have a sense of a natural origin, you know, breathing out, the automatic, nervous system being calmed, go with those. That's the choice that you're being offered at the moment. So I think that's really lovely. And then the last deck that I picked up out of my enormous pile of tarot decks, not even pile, enormous collection. This one just winked at me. It's called the Druid Craft Tarot Deck, and a lot of these, if I'm really honest, I haven't used because you sort of bond with certain ones, and this is one I've not really used that much. I've been pulling a couple of cards from it today and have enjoyed it. Again, tarot. So we're not in the oracle realm, we're in the tarot realm. So could you also comment on this reading and see if there's anything else to say? I think that one wants, those 2 want to come out. What have we got here? The 6 of Wands. I was thinking we haven't got any 6s because we've got a 3 in the 3 of Swords, and we've got lots of 9s. And now we've got the 6 of the Lovers, which is lovely because this kind of completes this 3, 6, 9 sense. And now we've got the 6 of Wands, which is this beautiful card of victory. I think it's saying, and again, look who he's got on his hand. Again, he's tamed something. I am going to read from this book. And then the Prince of Cups, which I love. It's a kind of, it's the offer of the heart. It's a feeling of peace, romanticism. We'll read from the book. But I feel, let's go with the Prince of Cups first, that what it's saying is, you know, you are getting there. You are winning this fight. Keyword, not fight. You're winning in the softening of your approach towards what is healthy and natural rather than neurotic and worrying. So the Prince of Cups, keywords: idealistic, empathic, romantic. Someone following their heart may try to avoid the pitfalls of illusion and glamour. Must try to avoid the pitfalls of illusion and glamour. A conflict between the heart and the need to take action. Inviting others to a social or artistic event. Offering your help to others. An impending journey over water. So what I think it's saying is, I mean, I want to say, be careful of your energy a little bit. There's a sense of offering your help to others, but also to avoid the pitfalls of illusion and glamour. Guard your energy, guard this heart, guard this newfound wisdom. Don't allow... Don't become... So follow the heart, but don't become idealistically disconnected. It's a more pragmatic, immediate, earthy path that we're wanting you to take, not something that is disconnected. And there are plenty of beautiful things that the Prince of Cups represents. The romance is not bad. Following your heart is great. You just have to do it and be earthy with it. And so here we have the Six of Wands coming with it, which I feel bodes well, because this is victory, success, fame, leadership. Success achieved through being a skilled leader. Praise or rewards received are the result of an ability to inspire others. You may be asked to take on a leadership role or be looking for this in others. Cooperation and harmony within a family, successful legal or property transactions, or promotion at work. I think what it's saying is, take quite a kind of pragmatic leadership role in promoting the heart, but do it the way a leader would do. So this isn't about being like a child and disconnected from others. This is about saying, I promote, honor, and elevate the heart to its proper position while protecting it. Because look at these characters who are behind. And again, the Lovers feels like this to me as well. It's like upping the status of the heart in some way. Why isn't that coming into focus? Come on. And honouring that natural side that's sitting on the horse and riding with such kind of great stately dignity back into the village. And there are these protectors. So they remind me of the Nine of Wands and the Seven of Wands, which both appear, you know, these people brandishing the sticks. But they're only there just in case now. They're not engaged in creating walls that may or may not be needed because of past disappointments, genetic, hereditary traumas. And they're not worryingly scurrying to the top of the hill, putting the wrong shoes on, having to defend everything. They are standing down but ready. And I think that's the stance that you need to take. So in order to allow this kind of tamed, natural, heart-centered nature instinct, to allow it to do its job, to allow this wisdom of the manatee, that isn't a manatee here, but that's how I'm seeing it, to take place, to allow all these beautiful, wise fish and rivers and the emotions to take place, and the cups, and that you have to be ready to defend your stance while not jumping in and causing a fight before you need to. So there is a sense of kind of elevated status, being ready to be quite tough if you need to be, not being overly empathic to the point where you drown in the needs of other people, not being overly idealistic where you can't see the way through because it's like a conceptual story time version of what things need to be. It's allowing the heart in the moment to take precedence, giving it its proper place and its honor, elevating it, and then doing everything you need as a backup to make sure that you're defending that heart the way we would with armor, the way this character has his hands above his heart. That's what he's really acting from. That's where we need to be, I think. I hope that makes sense, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.